The Book at the South Point studio. Here's Jeff Parles.
Let's roll. It is a Black Friday here on Sports by the Book here at the South Point studio. Hey, it's a different time for us. Hey, we're happy to be here as always. I'm Jeff Parles. Alex White's here as well. Have a good Thanksgiving.
Great Thanksgiving. How about you?
Yeah, no complaints. No complaints. I'm here. I'm in one piece. It's better than a lot of people at the Lions yesterday. So
that was brutal.
yeah, I will say this just to react to what we saw yesterday with the Packers outright as an 8.5-point underdog against the Lions. The Cowboys. I saw the stat yesterday on the Commanders, which, by the way, they fired Jack Del Rio, their defensive coordinator, this morning. And more problems than just Del Rio. The Commanders did something yesterday that no team in the last 25 regular seasons had done. Teams entering yesterday were a combined 57-0 when they had over 100 rushing yards, they had 250-plus passing yards, 35 minutes plus time of possession, no more than 25 penalty yards, no more than one turnover. Washington did all that yesterday. They lost by 5 touchdowns. Very impressive.
Very. That is crazy.
That was from OptiStats on the tweets who had that one. And then the late night, and Alex, this is really where I want to get your thoughts. Frank, man, we warned you. We warned you on the Seahawks. Ryan got it done. You got it done on your parlay. But Frank's the culprit yesterday for Punchlines, the other show here on the channel. 49ers 31-13 over the Seahawks. All I'm going to say is when the Niners are fully healthy and they have all their guys on offense, if they somehow can get to the 1 seed, which, yes, Philly has a 2-game lead on them, but they play each other next week. The Eagles have this brutal schedule that we've talked about for the last month plus on the way. If the Niners can find a way to get to the 1 seed, I have a very hard time seeing anyone beating them in the playoffs in their building if they stay healthy. Where really, for Philly, it's handling your business and keeping that 1 seed, because I don't think anyone's beating San Francisco in Santa Clara this year. It would have to come on the road. So that game next week is of utmost importance, more to Philly than San Francisco. But boy, the Niners looked impressive last night again.
They really do. And all facets of the game. I mean, everybody is playing at the top of their game, offense, defense. So I agree with you. I think the Niners is one of the best teams in the league right now.
Yeah, I would, again, if you're going just straight rankings right now, and however way you want to do it, more so in a traditional power rating sense, more so than a betting power rating sense, just my eye test more than anything, it's them in Philadelphia. They're 1 and 2. I know people have decided that trying to say this Eagle team is kind of like last year's Minnesota team. No, they're way better than that. And honestly, right now, you can make a legitimate argument the Cowboys are 3, but I'd like to see Dallas beating the lead team first before putting them in the category of Philadelphia and San Francisco. Seahawks, by the way, down to 6-5. Their next 3 games at the Cowboys, at the Niners, and the Eagles. Good luck with that one if you're Seattle down to 6-5. All right, to today's games we go.
I do want to bring up
Yes,
really quick.
Yeah.
What do you think about the Packers here? 3 in a row now. That game yesterday, I think it was more about them and how well they played as opposed to how bad the Lions played.
You know, it's a good question, because you look at the NFC playoff standings and there's going to have to be at least one bad team that gets in there. Not counting the NFC South champion, which we know is going to be a bad team, whoever comes out of that. But it's going to come down to me, either Green Bay or Seattle. Who gets through these next few weeks a little bit better? There are the standings across the board in the NFC right now. Green Bay now within a game of Minnesota. Minnesota on Monday night, a 3.5-point favorite right now against the Bears. But the Packers right there. Also, don't sleep on the Rams. That's all I'm going to say. Don't sleep on the Rams, who found a way to beat Seattle last week, got the season sweep of them. Big tiebreaker implications, as we know, with having that season sweep. Don't be surprised. I think one of those, either Green Bay or L.A., one of those two teams is going to end up getting into the postseason, and Seattle's going to be left out in the cold when this is all said and done. That's the way I have it.
I completely agree. I mean, this Seattle team, it's been rough for them this year. We knew we'd see a regression, but not like this. I mean, they have so many weapons on both sides of the ball, but they just are not finding ways to win games.
Well, look, they're still 6-5. If they find a way to get one of the next 3, 7-7, with a very manageable final 3 games of the season, 10-7, probably enough to get you home in an NFC playoff berth. But hey, you got to steal one of those next 3 games. If not, best case scenario, you're 9-8, and you may need some help in order to get in to the postseason. All right, to today's games. Let's go to the NFL first, and then we have a collection of college games. By the way, college hoops already underway today. A really good matchup at Walt Disney World, Texas A&M and Florida Atlantic. The Aggies closed 4-point favorites over last year's NCAA tournament darlings of the FAU Owls, tied at 2 early in that one. Good tournament. Probably actually the best matchup in that tournament. Winner of that one will play the winner of Virginia Tech and Iowa State in the championship game at the ESPN Events Invitational there at Walt Disney World. All right. NFL we go. There we go. See, the graphics guys beat us to it. The Jets and the Dolphins. We talked about this earlier in the week. Tim Boyle's going to get the start. His first start as a Jet. First start since 3 years ago with the Lions. It's up to 9.5. Total's 40.5. Alex, I don't care that it's not Zach Wilson anymore. The Jets can't score. And they're going up against the team that we know their offense is great. They haven't been great against great teams. And look, the Jets by no stretch are a great team. But if their defense plays at the level we have seen this year, they are a great defense. And this is one of those weird matchups for Miami. They're clearly the better team in this game. It's 9.5 points on the road, and I think that's right. But it is a test. It's going to be chilly in the Meadowlands. It's a team that we know plays much better at home than on the road, and it is playing a top-tier defense if the Jets' defense does play well today. It's a funky one for Miami, but I just don't think the Jets are good enough on offense to realistically warrant a bet unless if somehow this game gets north of 10 before kick, which I do not see happening.
So my favorite bet on this, I went under 41.5.
No problem with that.
5 straight unders for the Jets. We knew exactly who they were. Great defense, terrible offense. It was a recipe for unders. And I don't think we're going to see a big change like you mentioned with Tim Boyle, but I do think he may bring a little energy to this offense. And the Dolphins, I think teams are starting to figure them out a little bit. And as you mentioned, on the road, averaging 22.2 points compared to their home, 38.8. And in their last 3 games, averaged just 21.7. We saw an average Raiders defense hold them to 20 at home. So now they're on the road in New York. Love this under. And I do not mind the points here with the Jets as well. I think their defense can keep them in this game. And I'm kind of excited to see offensively what we get from them.
I will say with Miami last week, they kind of kept shooting themselves in the foot. They had 3 turnovers. They had a goal-to-go scenario where they got stopped, the 4th and 1 inside the 10 where they got stopped. That 20-13 game final last week against the Raiders, I don't think that was indicative of what that game was. Miami did outgain the Raiders 422 to 296, and about 75 of those yards came on the final drive for the Raiders before Aiden O'Connell threw the interception. But the under right now, it's 40.5. If you get 41, if you get that hook gets added back, I would take it under 41. Jet games should not be totaled in the 40s. I don't care who the opponent is on the other side. That offense is just so bad. And again, I know there are a contingency of Jet fans that think that Tim Boyle is going to at least produce some sort of offense here today. I'm not buying that for a second.
No.
Just look at the guy's career stats. He had more interceptions and touchdowns in college, and he somehow made it to the NFL. He had 3 touchdowns and 9 picks in his limited action so far in his NFL career. Only one of his starts in Detroit was within 1 score. It was against Atlanta. Shocking that was the case. But I just don't see it, Alex. Unless if the Jet defense is scoring today, which, hey, could happen. You never know. Tua could find the interception bug, and the Jets could return one, and all of a sudden it's a whole different ball game. But I just don't see it today with the Jets. I think Miami wins this game. I think you get to 24 if you're the Dolphins, you're probably covering this big number. If it's anything less than 24, you're probably in a little bit of danger today because I do think the Jets get to double digits. What a sad statement that is. I think they're getting to double digits in this one today.
I wish I knew who said this so I could credit them, but I did see somebody give out Garrett Wilson over 52.5 receiving yards. How do you feel about that? The whole preface was when Tim Boyle played in Detroit, his main target was Amon-Ra St. Brown. They see him going to Garrett Wilson a lot in this game, kind of as a protection thing. So I wanted to get your take and what you thought.
You know, it's interesting because Jalen Ramsey's going to be on Garrett Wilson all day. And Jalen Ramsey is healthy. He had 2 interceptions a week ago against the Raiders, including that one, which was really a spectacular play in the end zone to end that game for good last week. Yeah, I mean, look, Garrett Wilson's on pace for 1,000 yards with just abjectly awful quarterback play this year. 52.5. He is dealing with a bum elbow, so there is a little bit of a concern there. He only had 1 catch a week ago in Buffalo. I don't mind it. I don't mind it. If the Jets are going to be competitive in this game, that number's got to go over. Let's just go with that. If they're going to be in this game, that number's got to be over for Garrett Wilson today. If you're looking for a Jet player prop guy, I would look the Breece Hall numbers. That would be the way I would look at it today. All right, we'll get back to that game later because Vinny Magliulo will join us a little later in the show. Let's get the the other Miami team. Forget the Dolphins. Let's get the Canes. Go to college football. Miami at Boston College. Canes are 10-point favorites at home. This is 115, 116 on your rotation numbers at home if you're out here in Nevada. 49 the total. Canes laying 10, Alex. This is one of those almost famous ones for me. I just can't do it with Boston College. Since clinching the bowl game, which they did 3 weeks ago now, their last 2 outings have been really, really ugly. They were pummeled by Virginia Tech in Chestnut Hill 2 weeks ago, 48-22. And last week, they were listless on a Thursday night in Pitt. They lose to the 2-8 Panther team coming in. And now they get Miami where, look, I can tell you this. I would definitely not lay the 10 with Miami because this is a weird spot for them. On the road, Black Friday. It's actually pretty nice for late November in Boston. It's 46 degrees, which is pretty good. But for those guys coming from South Florida, it might as well be 26 degrees. So, Alex, I just can't get there on this. If you made me play it, I would take all those points with Boston College. But I really have hated how they've looked the last 2 weeks.
I completely agree with you. I think the number is just right. And, I mean, you're talking about Boston College and how bad they've looked. Miami's been struggling, too. I mean, they've lost 3 in a row. You can say their last 2 were very competitive. And Tyler Van Dyke, he did look good last week. I said I thought he looked, he'd be humbled. He'd start this one. He rose to the occasion against Louisville, but they did fall short in that one. So I don't know what kind of effort we're going to get from Miami here in Boston College on a Friday here. So I agree with you. If I had to play it, I would probably take the points at Boston College, but my numbers are right there, so I passed.
Again, if this might be a reasonable in-game one, if Boston College doesn't look terrible, taking, honestly, any sort of points with Boston College, ask me in 46 minutes. I may have that 10 in the bet column here for me today. There is some 9.5 as well if you want the better number on Miami right now. All right, let's go to these 2 MAC games that are starting at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. We'll put them together. I didn't have anything on these games. Akron taking on Ohio. Ohio, 14.5 here at the South Point. This has been moving the last few minutes as high as 16 at one spot here in town. The rest of the market is mostly 15.5 on the Bobcats. And then Toledo already clinching the MAC West on the road at Central Michigan today. 10-point favorites the Rockets are. That just moved here behind us. 54 to total. That will move from 9.5 to 10. I had nothing that popped in either of these games, Alex.
So Central Michigan is playing for a bowl spot. I thought you might be intrigued by that, wanting the points. I actually went with the over on both of these games. I hope I don't hate myself. So Ohio Akron over 41.5. That's mostly against Akron because they are 1-6, giving up a lot of points. And Ohio, they put up a lot of points even against the good teams, averaging 26 points a game, coming off a 34-point game against Central Michigan. But I do think Akron can score here, putting up 27. They put up 27 against a 6-6 Eastern Michigan team. So I don't think they're just going to roll over. I think they get us a couple touchdowns here to get over that 41.5. On the flip side, Toledo and Central Michigan. As I mentioned, Central Michigan, they are playing for a bowl spot, so they will be very motivated to take on this Toledo team. And Toledo's averaging 32 points a game against their conference opponents. So went 2 overs in the MAC games today.
Toledo will take on Miami of Ohio next Saturday in Detroit. That matchup is already set. Really, in all honesty, these matchups in these conference championship games next week, which, by the way, we will be here next Saturday morning previewing all of them after late night at Allegiant Stadium for at least one of us on the desk, and possibly midday at Allegiant Stadium next week on Saturday for you, Alex, if UNLV can get it done tomorrow and be in the Mountain West title game. We already know CUSA championship game is set next Friday. New Mexico State at Liberty, we already know that. Miami against Toledo, we already know that. Louisville, Florida State, already good there. And, of course, the big one, Georgia and Alabama, we already know in the SEC title game next week in Atlanta. With an Oregon win today, we're all set here in Vegas with Oregon and Washington, which will be a heck of a game, again, if the Ducks get it done tonight against Oregon State, a game that we will get to a little bit later. All right. The lowest total. Do you have one other thing?
I was just going to ask if you had any feel for that Miami, Ohio, Toledo game just yet, or if you. I know it's a week early.
What would do you have? Do you have your numbers by chance? If not, we can get those a little bit later. But Toledo's going to be favored.
I made Toledo a 4.5 point favorite. Total sitting at 45.5.
On those numbers, I lay it.
Okay.
I lay it with Toledo.
And you've liked Miami, Ohio a lot.
Miami of Ohio is going to go 10-2. I mean, they're going to win tomorrow in Muncie against Ball State. They're going to win that game. Ball State has had a rough year, and they have nothing to play for tomorrow. I would probably lay it with Toledo. Honestly, these two teams met already this year in Oxford. Toledo found a 21-3 lead into the break and was able to hold on for a 4-point win in that one. I probably would lay it with Toledo. I just think they're the better football team in that one. And that's next Saturday. It used to be Friday night. Now it's a noon East kickoff on Saturday on Conference Championship Saturday. All right, the lowest total in documented college football history coming up next. Iowa and Nebraska. Iowa already into the Big Ten title game. Nebraska, Alex, there's something about this Nebraska program over the last few years. When they finally get to that 5-win plateau, it is a legitimate plateau. Just stops right there. Since getting win number 5 on October the 28th, a little under a month ago against Purdue. 3-point loss to Michigan State. 3-point loss to Maryland. Overtime loss to Wisconsin. They have been close.
Yeah.
They just can't get over the hump to win number 6. Now walking in there is Iowa, who somehow has a chance at win number 10 this year. A potential 10-win season for this team with absolutely no offense whatsoever. Just an incredible testament to what that defense has been this year, all year long. And here we are, Alex. The total now is 25 here behind us. It is as low as 24.5. By the way, one shop just got bet up from 24.5 to 25. And Nebraska is favored here. Now, when we did our Football Friday show on Wednesday this week, I asked Chris Andrews. He said his numbers came to Nebraska too, which I was a little bit surprised at. I understand Iowa's offense should have as close to a 0 power rating as possible, but this just feels like a game to me. And I took Iowa on the money line at plus 125. This just feels like one of those games where Iowa's defense is going to turn Nebraska over and score or either score themselves or lead to an Iowa touchdown. And one touchdown with that low of a total might be good enough here today.
I agree. I have no play on this. I really didn't know what to make of it. I made it a pick'em. So really that leans me towards Iowa, but people are betting this like they already know Nebraska is going to win. I know we have the 6th game in sight for them, so they are trying to get bowl eligible. And then I know that Iowa could possibly be looking ahead. They're going to play Ohio State or Michigan next week, right? For the Big Ten. So, or a couple. Is it next week? Next week. So I understand that too, but I didn't feel comfortable betting Nebraska against this Iowa defense. So I stayed away from it. I don't mind your bet on Iowa though.
Yeah, it is going to be an ugly one. I can tell you that. Again, 25 in a football game. Just keep in mind here real quick, just to go just to show how absurd this is. Toledo and Central Michigan's first half total is 28 today. And that's not an absurdly high total by any stretch. But it's 28. It just shows. By the way, first half total on this one, 13. 13 and a half in some spots as well. But boy, just what a what a ridiculous football game.
How low does it have to get for you to go over the total?
How low does it have to? 24. 24. I would do 24.
Okay.
If it's because at that point you can get at least a push out at a 14-10. Last week did go over this number. It's 15-13 last week. Now it didn't go over the number they needed in that game because it ended up going 33 and a half.
Right.
But I would say more than anything, if you can get 24, but it's not going to go 24 because this is getting bet over. It's now 25 basically across the board here on this one. Boy, just up to 25. How ridiculous of a statement is that? Up to 25 on Iowa and Nebraska. All right. Now, this has been the biggest mover in the morning, and when Vinny Magliulo is in with us in about 10 minutes, we'll ask him on this. We're back to 10 on TCU and Oklahoma. Back to 10. We had basically been toggling between as low as 8 this morning, and now back to 10, which is what it was overnight and early this morning before people got to it. Dylan Gabriel is in uniform right now and was throwing pregame. That's from Eli Letterman there in Norman of Sellout Crowd, which is a company that covers Oklahoma sports in the state. You know, now that we're at 10, I think I would, again, go back and take some more TCU.
Wow.
I took some more earlier in the week at 10. You know, this is a Horned Frog team that needs the game in order to get to bowl eligibility. And for Oklahoma, we've seen two types of efforts this year, Alex. We've seen the efforts like last week, where even before Dylan Gabriel got hurt, they were struggling as a 25.5-point favorite against a BYU team that is awful right now. And quite frankly, they were lucky. If Getzlaff didn't get turnover happy in the second half, Oklahoma would have lost that game as a 25.5-point favorite. Or are we going to see the Oklahoma team that we saw 2 weeks ago, which we've seen a few times this year, where Dylan Gabriel's locked in, the defense is turning you over, and they just keep the foot on the gas pedal and running out of the building. We've seen that. We've only seen that twice in conference play. They did it at Iowa State. They put 50 on them, and they put 59 on West Virginia 2 weeks ago. I think it's more so that it's a slow start. Both of the common denominators with that Iowa State game and the West Virginia game, they were late kicks. The earlier kicks, except for the Texas game, they have had slow, and they even had a slow start in that Texas game. Wouldn't shock me if we get a slow start today. I also don't mind first half on TCU, Alex.
Oh, I like that. I didn't think about that. I also did about a half a unit on TCU plus 10 early in the week with the Dylan Gabriel news of him being questionable. We'll see what happens there. But you're right. This TCU team, they need this game really bad. I mean, they started their season. It went all sideways, right? They lost to Colorado first game of the season after being in the playoffs last year. And now they are playing for bowl eligibility this year after being in the playoffs last year. I think this is a big spot for them. Just 5-6. Crazy to say that. So I think we're going to get the best effort we've seen so far from TCU. And I think they've gained some confidence. Big win over Baylor last week, 42-17. So use that moving forward here against Oklahoma.
Been the biggest mover of the morning. Back to 10 now on that one with TCU and Oklahoma. 64 the total, the highest total of the games here on Friday in the college football landscape. Let's get the Mountain West game, the mediocre Mountain West game first. How about New Mexico last week?
Yeah.
On the road, late night, huge underdog gets the win outright in Fresno to eliminate Fresno from Mountain West title game possibilities. Now they go back home to Albuquerque, and they take on Utah State. Utah State's 5-6. They need this game in order to get bowl eligible at 6-6. 5-point favorites right now. Aggies are on the road against the Lobos. This was as high as 8.5. So this has been a one-way stream. A little bit of buyback of 4.5 here at the South Point, but it's really been a one-way stream on the Lobos here in this one, Alex.
And I'm on the other side. I laid the 5 with Utah State. I just think they are the better team, and 5 wins playing for their bowl spot. New Mexico, I think we might have a little bit of a letdown spot here after that big win over Fresno State last week. Neither defense is very good. New Mexico giving up an average of 36.7 points a game, and Utah State 33.7, so not far behind. So I think this may go back and forth, but ultimately I think the better team wins, and I think Utah State can cover here.
I have nothing on this one. Cross didn't even look at it for me, from my perspective. I looked at New Mexico forever last week and just couldn't do it, and of course they went outright as a 3.5 touchdown underdog. All right, let's go to the Battle Line rivalry next. Missouri on the road taking on Arkansas Tigers, 9-point favorites in this one against the Hogs. 54 to total. So this has been Missouri action so far in this one. Open 7.5. Actually got down to 7 pretty quickly. Then slow little stream, little by little. 7.5, 8.5, now 9 this morning with the Tigers. 54 to total on this one, Alex. Now, I'm not saying Mizzou won't cover this game, but we're now at the point where I can't lay this big of a number in a game where Sam Pittman is. Hunter Yurachek said earlier this week he's coming back to be the head coach next year of Arkansas, which surprised me a little bit. But I can't do anything at 9. There is some 9.5 out there as well. I wonder if we see 10 before this game kicks at about 1 o'clock Pacific time this afternoon.
I agree with you, Jeff. And last week probably should have been the week where I stopped laying this big number. But I did adjust Missouri down a little bit, and I still have them as quite a big difference. I have them as an 11-point favorite here against Arkansas. But their defense isn't as good as their offense, right? And we've seen a mixture of performances from them. Really good against Tennessee, South Carolina, and then kind of questionable performances against Florida, and then the first half against Kentucky. But this Arkansas offense is a mess. Their quarterback, KJ Jefferson, has been sacked 41 times. That's the third most again amongst all FBS schools. So it would be Missouri or pass for me, but I decided to pass on this one.
9 right now on the Tigers at 9-2. A win for Missouri today would be a 10-win season, their first since 2013. Or I should say 2014 would be the last time they've had a double-digit win season. And also it would mean a likely slot in a New Year's Six Bowl for the first time for the Tigers if they can get this done today against Arkansas. Ole Miss got to win number 10 a night ago in pretty unimpressive fashion last night against Mississippi State in the Egg Bowl, 17-7. The final was that one last night in Starkville. All right, let's go to the other Mountain West game. Air Force and Boise State. Alex at 7. We had a pretty deep conversation on this game earlier before the show, where the winner of this game is more than likely than not going to the Mountain West title game. Air Force was 8-0, and they have just totally fallen apart the last 3 weeks. The disaster against Army, losing by 20, turning it over 6 times. Following that up with, really, to me, a much worse loss against Hawaii at 27-13 in that game. And then the game against UNLV in that one, where they lose 31-27. UNLV had a shot, Air Force had a shot to win that game, a big second quarter, but not enough. And now at 8-3 on Air Force, you got to have it spot. Got to win this game against Boise today, and they're a touchdown underdog in this one.
I laid 6.5. Not a whole lot. I'm treading lightly here because, I'm with you. I was very tempted to take the points here with Air Force because this is such a meaningful game for both of these teams. But I just think these teams are going in opposite directions. Boise has been playing much better as of late, and Air Force, like you said, their last 3 games have just been a disaster. Their bubble was burst against the Army, and they haven't been able to put it together again. Plus, I don't know if we're going to have their quarterback back just yet. Lerner. He was out for concussion last week, and so I think the Broncos, they're a much better team at home, so I think they can get this one done.
Boise State last week, a 45-10 destruction of Utah State. This has been one of the weirder years you can remember for Boise State football. They're 6-5. They fired Avalos 3 weeks ago.
Yep.
And here they are, because the Mountain West has really blown up around them more than anything, where Fresno had all these opportunities to get there. They're 4-3 in conference. Wyoming got off to that great start. They're 7-0 at home. They're 0-4 away from Laramie this year. They have the most aggressive home road splits of anyone in the entire country this year. It doesn't matter what conference. It's Wyoming Cowboys. And because of that, they can't go to the Mountain West title game anymore. San Jose State, obviously, if they beat UNLV, they'll play the winner of this game more likely than not in the Mountain West title game. But here we are, the worst Boise team in a long time. And with a win tonight, they will probably go to the Mountain West title game. And more likely than not, will host with the UNLV loss, they would host the Mountain West title game. So really just weird year there in Boise, as they have a shot to host the Mountain West title game. More likely than not, they win this game. We'll get to the Rebel game tomorrow. I do like UNLV, even though the bettors have taken San Jose State so far this week in that one. All right. My arch nemesis is up next. Texas Tech. Red Raiders got to win number 6 last week. They got there as they finally find a way to get bowl eligible. It's been a weird year in Lubbock. Quarterback injuries throughout the year. A year that started with a loss in Laramie. See, full circle on that one. And here we are at 6-5 for the Red Raiders as they go to Texas. And the Longhorns have everything to play for. They're 10-1. They're 7 in the country. They win out. They're going to have as good of an argument as anyone to make the college football playoff as one of those back-end seeds. It's 14, Alex. It's been bet up through the week. 52.5 the total here on this one. It did open 14, down to 13, now back to 14 here at the South Point. I did nothing here. I think this number's right. If Tech was 5-6, maybe I would consider at just taking some points here. But with them 6-5, really the only thing for Texas Tech here, this is the last time they'll see Texas, because Texas, of course, is leaving the Big 12 for the SEC next year. But I don't have anything on this one, Alex. I can't get there on either side.
Unfortunately for our viewers, I have nothing on this one either. As you mentioned, I think the number is just right. I can understand and rationalize laying the points with Texas under the 2 touchdowns and then taking the 14. I did make Texas a bigger favorite than the 14. So my numbers say to lay it here, but such a big game. I do like that the Longhorns have revenge from last year because Texas Tech pulled off an overtime win against them. So I like that factored in as well. Quinn Ewers, he's been back for a couple games now, and he's just getting better and better each week. So they're healthy again. And then really, I think Tech is going to have a hard time running the ball against this Texas defense, and we know that is their strength. They've relied on Tage Brooks all year long. So I think they're going to struggle here. You made a great point, too. They got their 6th win. So this could get out of hand as well.
Well, for Texas, again, style points I think do matter. Right now, they matter. They have They have the loss against Oklahoma, where if they just find a way, don't give up an 85-yard drive with basically no time on the clock to Oklahoma. They're 13-0. There's no chance they're getting denied, especially with that win over Alabama earlier in the year. It's a sweat. Regardless of what happens these next 2 weeks for Texas, they need some stuff around them to happen in order to definitely push them in. I think their easiest path is Florida State loses, period. And I think Texas in that position would be perfectly fine. They would get in that one. All right, let's hit these last 2 college football games for today, and then we'll bring our guy Vinny Magliulo in to end the show here for us. Penn State and Michigan State. Alex, 22 behind us. It's 22.5 elsewhere. Low on the total behind us as well, 42.5. I did nothing here. Penn State has not really looked any good over the last month. And for Michigan State, this is just the end of what has been a miserable season for the Spartans in every facet.
It really has. I went under 43 here because their offense has been bad all year long. And on the flip side, Penn State has one of the best defenses in the country. So I think they show up here. We still don't know about their quarterback, Penn State. He's questionable, so we'll see what we get from them. But I went under 43 in this game.
Aller got hurt last week. Right now, as you said, questionable for the game today. I think we do see Aller when this is all said and done. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes for Penn State. This game in Detroit at Ford Field tonight, 7:30 Eastern Time. All right, the last one, the Civil War. Last time these teams are going to play for a while. Oregon State at Oregon in Eugene. 62 to total, Alex. And the Ducks laying 2 touchdowns. Our guy Jerry with a well-deserved week off. I know he would be blindly laying it with Oregon. Got as low as 13, up back to 14. I did nothing here. There is a strong argument to take the 2 touchdowns with the Beavers in this one, but Oregon is just so locked in right now.
Exactly, Jeff. And that's what makes this weekend so tough, right? If you've been following college football all year long, then your numbers are probably going to lead you to the favorites here. Oregon is looking like one of the best teams in the country. It's hard to even consider taking points against them, but you got to give Oregon State some credit. I mean, they've been fighting the whole end of this season. They lost a very close one to Washington. They came back there in the fourth quarter, made that one a little scary. So I could consider taking the points just with the motivation factor and the rivalry here, but I did make Oregon a bigger favorite than that 14, so stay away from me again.
Yeah, it's one of these for Oregon. They need to win out. They win out, they will have as good of an argument as anyone to be in the college football playoff. They would have avenged that 3-point loss in Seattle a little over a month ago against the Huskies with winning this weekend and winning here in Vegas against Washington. But right now, I don't think anyone's playing better than Oregon. Right now, they're playing the best of anyone in the country. Now it would just be a matter of getting into the college football playoff and seeing them against Michigan or Ohio State or whoever they happen to draw in that first playoff round. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we get back, Vinny Magliulo joins us. Well, plenty to talk about. College football today, the NFL, and also how about full cards of hockey and basketball as well, college and NBA alike. Vinny Magliulo joins us next. Sports by the Book, South Point Studio.
South Point is also proud to provide a variety of relaxing amenities for the guests who want to be pampered. Soak up the sun and let your stress melt away in our lagoon-style paradise swimming pool. A relaxing getaway where you can bask in the desert sun and enjoy seasonal food and bar service poolside. And if you really want to escape, come to Spa Costa del Sur. From couple suites to a co-ed wet area, our spa caters to business and leisure travelers who want to unwind and elevate their senses. A visit to one of our spa's steam, sauna, or whirlpool treatment rooms will leave any guest feeling like they can take on the world. Our gaming amenities include over 60 table games and over 2,600 of the most popular slot and video poker machines. We have penny slots, including the popular Buffalo games, and real machines like Wheel of Fortune, Triple Sevens, and Megabucks. If you prefer video poker, try Deuces Wild, Double Double Bonus, or a variety of multi-denomination games. Or try your hand at one of the most popular casino table games in the world, Blackjack. Don't let the game intimidate you. Blackjack, also known as 21, is both easy and fun. And our dealers are always happy to assist. And the best part? Blackjack always pays 3 to 2. Next, check out the roulette tables. Roulette is one of the easiest casino games to learn, and so much fun to play. It's a favorite of both beginners and seasoned players. In addition to blackjack and roulette, our casino pit features over 60 popular table games like Baccarat, Pai Gow Poker, 3-Card Poker, Ultimate Texas Hold'em, and Mississippi Stud. So get out of your room and come join in the fun.
"20 minutes before kick in a lot of these college football games here on a Black Friday. Hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving. By the way, shout out as always to where we're on here. Of course, Dom's Pizzeria, Trafford, Pennsylvania, as always.
That's right.
Oasis here in town, Steiner's as well here in Vegas. I know our friend Vinny Magliulo has frequented those places from time to time.
Right. And here's the thing about the places this is a requirement. Like the restaurants and bars, like the owner has to be in action because they're going to have good coverage on the TVs and everything.
Oh, of course.
Okay, so that's a big factor.
Absolutely. There's no arguing that.
Good food, good drink, good friends, and good coverage.
Content management's important.
Absolutely.
So, Vinny, first off, how was your Thanksgiving?
Good. It was very good. How about you? Did you folks have a nice holiday?
No complaints from me.
No, me either. Great.
Worked, a little bit, and you're kind of always on, given the fact that there were 3 games yesterday, and then of course the Egg Bowl last night. So there's, and it kind of builds. I mean, a lot of folks got the early game in probably the night before. Again, it helps us being 24 hours here at South Point. But as the day goes on, and family gets tired of each other, they come here. So and then it kind of snowballed, So it was the first game, no question. You saw Chris Andrews' tweet probably yesterday about the teasers getting knocked out in the first game.
I was going to ask about that. Yeah, Lions.
Yeah. However, the afternoon and evening was Black Friday deals came early for the bettors, and we have to wait till today. So, but that's part of the day, As long as we got one of the dogs transfer some funds, go back and forth, and as you can tell, it's pretty busy this morning as well. And as today goes on, it'll be busier and busier every hour.
How many people have first touchdown Iowa today, Vinny?
Oh, it's I was looking at the.
What is that?
Well, I know this.
60,
I know
60. Okay.
Not too many people have Iowa to be the highest scoring team of the day, 200-1. So if you're so inclined, yeah, Iowa 60-1 to score the first touchdown today. The favorite is actually Memphis at 7-2, followed by Oklahoma at 5-1. And again, that's the time of game, not time of day for the first touchdown. It still comes up every now and then.
Well, looking at this all the way through on that. All right, let's go through these, Vinny. The NFL game, of course, a Black Friday first.
Yeah.
For the NFL, trying to take over every day of the week, as we know. 9.5, 40.5. We talked about this on Football Wednesday this week. I think all we really needed to know about the difference between Zach Wilson and Tim Boyle, they might as well be one person at this point. But the bettors, with Wilson going to the bench and Boyle going into the lineup, actually bet Miami up. I think that's all you need to know here in this spot.
It's painful, I know.
Oh,
for
it
you,
sure is.
Jeffrey. I know a Jet fan. It's I don't know how it came up last night, but there was some old footage of Jets Raiders games from the late 60s and early 70s with Broadway Joe, Namath, and Darryl LaMonica. And this is not that Jet team. But this game here, we did get as high as 10, and that was so. When you look at this, it's interesting because you bring up an important point about how it's impacted the betting with the change of quarterbacks. Open 8, and then before it was even announced, it was headed up, and then it got as high as 10, and now sitting at 9.5, 40.5 on the total. No real surprise that the total I think has come down because of the Jets. Just the poor offense. Listen, he's had a week to get ready for it. He had some game time last week, Alex, but I'm not so sure this is a spot for Boyle to make a difference.
Well, and I want to ask both of you, what happened with Trevor Siemian there?
Great question, Alex. It's a great question. It's what I've been trying to figure out, because when this was announced on Monday, my first reaction is, how bad is Trevor Siemian at this point? That he's behind both Zach Wilson, who we know can't play, and Tim Boyle, who we also know can't play. And I'm sure you saw this during the week. It was Hackett's great remark is, "Oh, Tim Boyle knows the system." All right, well, when the offensive system is the equivalent to clogged toilets, I mean, who cares? I mean, let's be honest with ourselves.
You know, it boggles your mind. You're sitting there and you're going, well, what is exactly is going on? Right? Because Simeon was going to be the 2.
He
right?
is the 2 today.
I mean, he is the 2, but he's still he's not the starter. You know, Boyle, he knows the system. Okay, well, you know what? They knew the system in Denver last year too. How'd that work out? I mean, it's just not. But something had to be done. There had to be a change, right? There has to. It's just like, listen, in baseball, you know, sometimes you got to make a pitching change, or you got to rest. You know, you have a starter skip a start. Of course, even if it's an ace, they've not had an ace all year, unfortunately. And I mean, I just think that points are at a premium for the Jets. Maybe this is something that can jumpstart them. But again, I think it's as much the play calling. I think it's as, you know, you really, you know, coaches have a system, and that's great. But if you don't have the tools / the players to fulfill the system, then as a coach, you've got to adjust to what the skill set is or is not. And I think that's what's certainly been difficult.
Look, it is. We know what Nathaniel Hackett is. We know he's not a good football coach.
Mm-hmm.
We know when you take away Aaron Rodgers from Nathaniel Hackett's coaching career, the numbers, other than that one random year where Blake Bortles and the Jacksonville Jaguars were one bad officiating call away from being in the Super Bowl, as ridiculous as that is in retrospect, but they were.
Yeah.
Miles Jack's fumble recovery doesn't get blown dead.
Good point.
Jacksonville's in the Super Bowl that year.
It's
and
good.
it would have been,
Fair.
Vinny, I know we all would have remembered the Nick Foles, Blake Bortles Super Bowl if that was the
No
case.
question.
It would have been the greatest.
Well, it would have been
quarterbacking
something,
matchup.
at least for a prop or two.
It would have been the greatest. Well, hey, look, who knows? Maybe we never get the Philly special if it was Jacksonville instead of the Eagles. But regardless, the guy's not a good football coach. And we've seen that as soon as Rodgers went down. We have seen, all right, it's on you to be a little creative. He's unable. He's just not capable of doing it. And for the Jets, a wasting a defense that is as good as any in football.
Yeah.
And with a loss today, will be 4-7 and essentially put themselves
Done.
in the football equivalent of Dormy at that point, where they would have to win their last 6. And I can tell you right now, that would not happen.
No, because, you know, they'd have to win their last 6, and they'd have to get help. You know, in a lot of
27 would probably be good enough in the AFC.
I'm not so sure if again, you still need help to help that 10-7, right? I mean, let's face it, because there's other teams that are far better positioned, and you know, they don't have to win 6 in a row. So
right. I before we get to one college game that has been moving all over the joint today, and it moved again since you sat down. But just you talk about tie-ins, Vinny, with going from yesterday, which by the way, if you had basically so. When I walked in this morning, we were talking about the parlay that Alex, Ryan, and Frank Nicotero put together, and Frank was the one who blew it last night. He had the Seahawks.
Is that where Frank is? I did see an ambulance out front.
But these guys won on the Packer-Lion game. And I asked, how did you win on the Packer-Lion game?
Was it the total? Or
exactly.
Yeah.
But regardless, it was just one of those where you got basically the perfect result to begin the day yesterday for you guys behind the counter, which was forget Detroit losing outright. Like Chris's tweet said, you basically killed every single teaser that was in action at that point. All the money line parlays for yesterday were done.
Correct.
But with the Lions losing, how has that impacted the tie-ins to just today and then the rest of the weekend?
Well, what the thing about it is, it just got scratched in the minds of the bettors, and then in essence, the first game was the Cowboys.
Okay.
I mean, that's exactly how the bettors treated it. And there's times when the betting public really will surpass professionals, right? When it comes to those types of tie-ins and things like that. So, okay, we didn't do well with the Lions game. Scratch it. Let's go to the Cowboys and the 49ers, 2 solid teams. I mean, let's face it. And and I think I heard some bettors talking yesterday, and here's what I said. You know what? the Cowboys and the Niners are not going to let what happened to the Lions happen to them. Well, no, they were right. So,
Vinny, were you listening earlier when I told Alex the stat on the Commanders yesterday? The Commanders made some past 20-year history in the league yesterday. Teams were 57-0 in the last 25 regular seasons when rushing for over 100 yards, throwing for over 250, having more than 35 minutes of time of possession, less than 25 penalty yards, and 1 turnover or less. That's the first time a team has lost with that stat line in 25 years, and they lost by 35.
And let me ask you something. Did you sleep at all last night, or where the hell did you dig that up?
No, I saw that was from OptaStats.
That's great.
That's pretty good, isn't it?
Well, and then it cost a couple of coaches
Jack Del Rio
their jobs,
this
right?
morning. Yes, the defensive coordinator. Vinny, going to college real quick. We'll get to the ridiculously low total in a second, but TCU and Oklahoma has been bouncing around like crazy.
Yeah, I'm looking at this. We just went to 10.5.
Yeah, there's even an 11 now in the market, but that's for one of those books that's everywhere, not just in Nevada. Up to 10.5. Obviously, Dylan Gabriel. That just points to Dylan Gabriel is going to play in this game more so than anything.
In all likelihood,
Oklahoma.
yeah, starting to come up.
But I mean, my screen right now looks like a Christmas tree with all the red and the green on it right now.
Well, one of your favorites, I'm sure, is the Iowa-Nebraska total, which is
hey, that's up to 26 in some spots.
There you
right
go,
now.
buddy. So we did find a threshold. Remember, we opened. You gotta love it, right? I mean, again, you were with Chris and I last week, and we were talking about this total. What would we open it? I just couldn't bring myself to be as low as 26. 27. We opened at 26, and the money came in on the under. I mean, think about that. So, two good defenses, 2 really, really inept offenses. Alex, I'm not. Do you have a play on this? Did you touch this total?
I didn't touch this game at all.
I mean, look, Nebraska trying to become bowl eligible, right? They have. I think they've lost more one-score games just about than anybody this year.
So Nebraska,
right?
we went through it at the beginning of the show when we were going through this game, Vinny. Nebraska was 5-3, needing 1 win for bowl eligibility. Since then,
about a month ago,
October 28th, somehow they scored 31 against Purdue in that game, winning by 17. 20-17 loss to Michigan State, 13-10 loss to Maryland, 24-17 in overtime last week against Wisconsin in Madison. So they have been snake bitten the last month. Now they get Iowa, who can't score, and of course I took a money line price with Iowa today. So that's exactly what I did.
You did well. Yeah. Now I
took a quarter.
Well, you got the best price because the game is bet up from 1.5 up to 2.5. So, and then Brock Purdy's kid brother is under center for the Huskers.
That is Chuba Purdy.
I think. Look, I think you're obviously you're going to see a real spirited effort out of Nebraska here. The coach is. I think the folks like him. I think he's done as good a job as he could. He had a lot of injuries even before the season started, particularly at the wide receiver position. Very unsettled at quarterback. So rules come in. He's got the buy-in. I think of the players and the fan base, and if they get to a bowl game, then it's a springboard. Right now, you're starting to really see teams, in essence, preparing for next season, right? With recruiting, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of transfers out there as well, like we've seen in the last few years, and then getting bowl eligible is certainly money in the coffers as well.
I want to go to the Civil War because this, by all standards, this is the biggest game of the day. And it's a 2-touchdown spread with the Ducks, of course, laying it at home against the Beavers. Vinny, we talk about tie-ins. This is the night game tonight. This is the late one. This is the one where everything will go through this game here for this Friday.
5:30 Pacific.
And I'll just ask you this. There are some 13.5s in the market, but I expect most of those to be gone by the time this game kicks. Do you see this game going through 14 at all? And if it does, I would imagine it's a blink of an eye coming back the other way.
I think professionals would grab it, and I'll tell you, I wouldn't say that it won't. I mean, the possibility of it is very real that it goes through 14 for the simple reason of what you said. It's a 5:30 Pacific start, and it's going to have all day, but yesterday going to it as well. So the tie-in element is certainly going to contribute to what happens with the number. Frankly, I'm a little surprised that the Dolphins-Jets game was not a later game. Alex, I think when you look at the NFL, they usually grab that primetime spot. I mean, here you have the first Black Friday game, and it's a new. No, I'm not complaining about it. It's great. It's here, right in the middle of everything. I think the Civil War is going to be bet like an NFL game. I mean, we talked about it the other day. Remember with Chris on Wednesday. There's a game. So when you look at the Oregon game, could probably have a more handle than a couple of these NFL games that you look at. The Panthers-Titans. I mean, again, there'll be tie-ins and there's money going to that, but there's certainly some games. I mean, Michigan and Ohio State is going to be every bit the handle on that game will be every bit of an NFL game. So, but to your point, Jeff, I think it could go through 14. I think a lot of it will depend on how the tie-ins are going to it right at kickoff.
Because today is just a loaded day across the board.
Yeah.
There's a lot of college basketball. The NBA almost has a full card.
And NHL as well.
Almost has a full card. This is as good of a betting day across the board as there is the entire year.
Great point. I mean, that's this is another example why, even though there was no NBA yesterday and no NHL yesterday, you looked at the schedule. Wednesday, just a loaded card in both of those, right? And college basketball doesn't matter.
Right.
The day before, the Thanksgiving, right through the weekend, and some great tournament action and matchups in those tournaments. That's why this is the premier sports betting weekend of the fall as we head into the winter. We've got my goodness, over 300,000 people in town. It's always been a very busy time, and that's certainly going to contribute to the handle as well, Alex.
Great weekend. Looking forward to
a lot of choices.
The next 2 days. Yeah,
and you can zero in as bettors. You can zero in on some, whether it's a sport or some game, and keeping track of these NBA, who's injured, who had too much turkey. Oh my Lord!
Who had too much turkey? I mean, is that a reason to be sitting out? Is that a load management?
I don't know.
Thing?
Part of load management.
Yeah, I mean,
but that.
I will,
not in hockey. They'll all be
That's
playing.
right, Alex. Not in hockey.
I will say a rare NBA bet for me this morning. I did take the Magic. I did take Orlando in that early game.
What prompted you to make that play? I'm just
great
curious.
question. Great question.
I needed action.
No, you know what it was? It popped to 6 before I walked in there.
All right.
At some shops. It's back to 5.5.
5.5, yeah.
So I took 6 with Orlando, who, by the way, Vinny, I was talking to Alex before the show. There's always something about being a year too early with your bets where Orlando this year probably going to win that. It has a real shot to win their division in that Southeast division. Them and Miami are both off to really good starts after the Heat looked pretty bad for that first week.
Yeah.
But there were bloated prices out there across the board on Orlando. And, hey, look, that's an in-season tournament game today as well. Mm-hmm. Orlando wins. They have a shot to win that group. Boston wins. Boston clinches that group. Yeah. And they'll move through.
Obviously, Celtics fair. Look, the thing about it, too, is you want to start looking at positioning, too, particularly in hockey right now. Not so much the NBA, but, right, there's the school of thought that team that's in a playoff position in the NHL at this particular time of year at the Thanksgiving weekend, it's got about a 75% chance of making the playoffs, and that's certainly something that you want to look at. I think the most recent exception to that, which was a tremendous exception, was the Blues. What was it, about 5 years ago when they wound up winning the Cup? They had the worst record in the league in January, and came here to Vegas and started turning things around. But for the most part, I think that comes into play as well with maybe some future prices that folks may want to take a look at.
How is the in-season tournament in NBA?
You know what, Alex? It's not like people are betting it because it's the in-season tournament. They're betting the NBA, just because NBA and college have ticked up a bit, especially when there's not, we had 50 straight days until the other day of football.
Right.
But on the days that there's no football, that's when you see because the public will really get involved with the
and
NBA.
I would imagine with this, they're still in the group stage. So these, even though they're in-season tournament games, a lot of people in general won't even notice that they're in-season tournament games.
Because they've applied it. It just goes to the standings too, right?
It's the regular season games until 2 weeks from yesterday, where they come here,
right?
And the semifinals will be played on that first Thursday of December, and then the finals 2 days after that.
You fast forwarded the second part of my answer. That handle
will be nuts.
Again. It's here. Yeah. Remember, always higher handle when events are here in Las Vegas. Understandably, so people are going. They want to have So they've got 2 tickets on their phone at least, right? Here, let me get in, and then here's the rest of my tickets on my app.
I have one gripe with the NBA in-season tournament here, real quick. They're not doing the NCAA tournament style 1 ticket and in for Thursday, Vinny.
No,
it's a split.
Yeah.
One of the games is at 2. The Eastern Conference game's at 2:00 on that Thursday here in Vegas.
I remember going to Madison Square Garden again. Okay, here we go. Before you say it, before your time, both of you, and there were double headers, not only for college but in the NBA. They had the NBA double headers. 1 ticket got in. That was it.
That again, it'll be 2:00 on that Thursday, and I think it's 6
at night
for the second one, that West game. Which all I'm going to tell you is the Lakers already advanced to the quarterfinals. All I will tell you is if the Lakers get to the West final, the semifinal of that tournament, I can tell you that ticket's going to be as hard of a ticket as there will be to get.
And this has always been a Laker town.
Yeah.
I mean, I have to even though the Utah Jazz.
They played some home games here,
They
didn't they?
played in the early 80s. They played about 12 to 15, I want to not quite 20 home games here at Thomas and Mack. In fact, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar broke the record
right?
here.
Yeah,
I was at that game.
There we go.
That's right.
There we go.
Snuck
Vinny,
in there.
pleasure as always. We'll see you again tomorrow morning.
He'll be here. Yeah.
Tomorrow morning, full college football slate. We'll get all the previews.
Mm-hmm.
That Michigan-Ohio State game may be a little bit big tomorrow that we'll get to. And we'll have a little bit of a clearer picture on some stuff playoff-wise. Alex, good work as always from you. We'll see you again tomorrow morning. Shout out crew getting up early with us, and Ryan, Sean. Great work as always. I'm Jeff Parles. We'll see you again tomorrow. Same time, 8 a.m. Pacific. Sports by the Book, South Point Studio. Good luck on all your plays today.